Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 2, chapter entitled The Remembrance of Lord Krishna, text 26. Tato Nanda Brajam Itaha Pitra Kamsad Bibibhyata Ekadasha Samastatra Gidrarchi Sabalo Abasat. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Thereafter, his father, being afraid of Kamsa, brought him to the cow pastures of Maharaj Nanda, and there he lived for 11 years like a covered flame with his elder brother Baladev. Purport. There was no necessity of the Lord's being dispatched to the house of Nanda Maharaj out of fear of Kamsa's determination to kill him as soon as he appeared. It is the business of the Asuras to try to kill the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or to prove by all means that there is no God, or that Krishna is an ordinary human being and not God. Lord Krishna is not affected by such determination of men of Kamsa's class, but in order to play the role of a child, he agreed to be carried by his father to the cow pastures of Nanda Maharaj because Vasudeva was afraid of Kamsa. Nanda Maharaj was due to receive him as his child, and Yashoda Mai was also to enjoy the childhood pastimes of the Lord. And therefore, to fulfill everyone's desire, he was carried from Mathura to Vrindavan just after his appearance in the prison house of Kamsa. He lived there for 11 years and completed all his fascinating pastimes of childhood, boyhood, and adolescence with his elder brother Lord Baladeva. His first expansion, Vasudeva's thought of protecting Krishna from the wrath of Kamsa, is part of a transcendental relationship. The Lord enjoys more when someone takes him as his subordinate son who needs the protection of a father than he does when someone accepts him as the Supreme Lord. He is the father of everyone and he protects everyone. But when his devotee takes it for granted that the Lord is to be protected by the devotee's care, it is a transcendental joy for the Lord. Thus, when Vasudeva, out of fear of Kamsa, carried him to Vrindavan, the Lord enjoyed it. Otherwise, he had no fear from Kamsa or anyone else. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki. So, in this beautiful section of third canto, where Uddhavji is having conversation with Vidura on Lord Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, the principle of how the Braj Bhakti is centered around dependence. Krishna is dependent on the love of his devotees in Braj. When the demigods are praying to Lord Krishna in the womb of his mother in Mathura, they say, Satyabratam Satyaparam Trisatyam Satyasya Yonim Nihitam Cha Satye Satyasya Satyam Vrata Satyanetram Satyatmakam Tvam Sharanam Prapanna. They accept Krishna as a supreme absolute truth, the cause of all causes. And Vasudeva and Devaki are going through tremendous tribulations, difficulties, and challenges in order to somehow make Krishna appear. Kim dussaham nu sadhunam vidusham kim apekshitam kim kadaryam kadaryanam vidusham kim apekshitam. The 10th canto describes that what great personalities like Vasudev and Devaki would not tolerate for the right cause. Kim duhsahamnu sadhunam. Second, vidusham kim apekshitam. Those who are intelligent personalities centered around fulfilling Krishna's desire. What is it that they would not be detached from if they wish to accomplish their goals? And then, kim akaryam kadaryanam. Sinful souls like Kamsa, what they would not do to fulfill their pleasure and their ego. And in this way, the whole principle of how Vasudeva and Devaki struggled to make Krishna appear. They were able to subdue their tendency for seeking pleasure to the ultimate principle of purpose. So when you allow purpose and principles to drive you and not the pleasure-seeking tendency, then that's where the whole principle of spiritual life begins. And when Krishna appeared, after so much of struggle which Vasudeva and Devaki had gone through in their previous lifetimes, one would have expected Krishna to spend some time, at least, with Vasudeva and Devaki. But immediately, Vasudeva and Devaki were also afraid for Krishna's protection, that he would be killed by Kamsa. And so, Krishna himself requests Vasudeva to carry him across the Yamuna to Gokul. Ta Krishna vahe Vasudeva agate swayam vyavartanta yatha tamorave. So as soon as Krishna instructs Vasudeva, please pick me up, carry me. I give you the charge and the responsibility for my protection. Vasudeva had no previous track record of demonstrating competence and expertise in an area of protection, because he could not even protect his wife on the day of marriage. He could not protect the 6 sons. So the track record of Vasudeva with respect to providing protection was very low. So normally we choose people to engage in service seeing some degree of their competence and expertise, and to the extent the service becomes more critical, more crucial, to the extent the stakeholders involved are prominent, to the extent the situation is sensitive, to that extent we would rather never take risk by giving that seva to someone who does not have a good track record. What to speak of not good track record? Vasudeva could not protect any of them. So interestingly, Krishna chose Vasudeva only. And he said, you may have had a miserable track record, you may have failed miserably, you may have never accomplished anything in the field of protecting and saving either Devaki, yourself or your sons. But I want you to perform this seva. Which is a very interesting phenomena, because many times while engaged in service, we may put extraordinary attention to gaining skills. But Krishna is demonstrating that he is not impressed by Vasudeva's skills, because Vasudeva did not demonstrate any skills as far as protection is concerned. But Vasudeva had complete faith and trust in Krishna. And therefore, the sincerity which someone has in serving the Lord is more important than the skill sets he or she may have. So therefore, ta Krishna vahe Vasudeva agate. So as soon as Krishna tells Vasudeva, please carry me. Vasudeva is also not reacting, responding, because even the person who's given the service sometimes may hesitate. Why you are telling me? I don't even know this, I can't do this. I am not qualified for this. But Vasudeva realizes that if Krishna is giving me this instruction, he will also give me the empowerment. And without hesitation, without argument, he just picks up Krishna in his hand. Because he has more faith in Krishna's potency than in his own skills, which may have been acquired from past lives' piety. One of Srila Prabhupada's disciples, he was a book distributor, and he would always tell that more than the skills which I have for book distribution, what would take me through to be able to sell these books is my conviction and faith that Srila Prabhupada wants these books to go to the people. And he had very simple technique with great enthusiasm. He would tell the people, I want you to take these books. Krishna wants it. Srila Prabhupada wants it. And he would be so blissful and so smiling, people could not resist. So he had, one of the highest records of selling books in a day, in those days, in the 70s. And he was distributing these books in an airport in Australia. And somebody was watching him from a distance. After some time, this person came up to this book distributor and told him that I've been watching you for last 2 hours. And I can see that you are selling these books to people who don't want it. They are not interested. They have never heard of your book. But somehow they still buy it. I have never seen a marketing person like this. And he said, in my company I've been looking for a vice president for marketing. I want to offer you that job. This book distributor looked at this gentleman and said, do you have Bhagavad Gita? And he made sure that this guy purchases a Gita. And then this man said, give me your address, give me your phone number, and I'll also give you my phone number. Let's stay in touch. Because he thought he should really try to convince him to join him. After a week, this man calls this book distributor. Hey, what happened? Did you make a decision? So he said, I'm thinking about it, but I had a question for you. And the man said, what? And the book distributor said, do you have the Srimad Bhagavatam? And then he said, no. He said, well, this is what the Bhagavatam is all about. The whole cosmology is there. This is there. That is there. He described in great detail and convinced him. And this man was thinking, I have to keep the relationship open. So if I don't buy, maybe he'll stop the relationship and I can't, hire him. So he said, okay. He purchased that also. And the week after that, he again calls him and said, have you made a decision? And then he said, do you have the Chaitanya Charitamrita? And he didn't know what he was talking about, but he said, okay, let me acquire this. And he purchased the entire set of books which were published till then. And then finally this book distributor said, don't think we are doing this as hired salesmen. This is not a business. We are doing this because our Guru, our founder, Srila Prabhupada has written these books out of love for the compassion and the compassion for the conditioned soul so that they can be delivered. And because of receiving this knowledge, my life has changed and I have full conviction and faith that others' lives will also change. So we are trying to distribute these books as an act of reciprocation and gratitude to His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada for spending sleepless nights for giving us these Bhaktivedanta purports. Srila Prabhupada ki. So Srila Prabhupada when he was in Vrindavan and he was giving the Bhaktivedanta purports, this is in the late 50s, early 60s, in Radha Damodar temple. So one of his Brijavasi friends entered and he saw Srila Prabhupada deep in meditation, translating and writing the commentaries. And this Brajavasi friend looked at Srila Prabhupada and said, "Hey, Abhay Babu, I see that you have a Parker pen with which you are writing this." Prabhupada pointed to the book, the Srimad Bhagavatam, and the Bhaktivedanta purports he was writing. And he said, "This is not just a Parker pen. Whoever will read these literatures, they will cross over the ocean of material existence. Bhav Sagar paar kar jayenge." That is the purpose why these books have been written. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada, he quotes from the Srimad Bhagavatam that, abaddavat api, even the literature may be written in imperfect language. Namani anantasya yashon kitaniyat. But because the subject is glorification of Krishna, whatever is the shortcoming will be taken care. So therefore, as soon as Vasudeva is told, "Please pick me up," without hesitation, without argument, he picks up Krishna in his hand. And as soon as he picks up Krishna in his hand, the impossible becomes possible. Swayam vyavartanta yatha tamo rave. Just like in the darkness of night at 1 or 2 a.m. in the morning, you cannot imagine how the whole sky will become lighted up. But then, in a few hours, the sun starts rising and starts dissipating the darkness. The sun rises, and when the sun rises, darkness gets dissipated. Like that, all we need to do is bring Krishna into our heart. Need to bring Krishna's will into our life, and gradually he'll start dissipating all kinds of dark obstacles automatically. Swayam vyavartanta yatha tamo rave. The tamogun is dissipated by the sun. Similarly, doubts and confusions and lack of clarity is destroyed just by bringing Krishna in. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada has very clearly ascertained that the purpose of International Society for Krishna Consciousness is to help elevate our consciousness, not improve our competence. How do we elevate our consciousness? Through association of devotees, sadhu sangha. Amanistarite tomar iha agaman, paramo dayalo tumi patita pavan. When Sri Ramananda Rai meets Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he says, "You have appeared because you are deliverer of the fallen." And who is the fallen? Vedanishta madhye ardheka veda mukhe mane veda nishiddha papa kore dharma nahi gune. One who knows what is to be done, what is not to be done, but still is confused about his choices. When there is confusion about one's choices, one needs contemplation on the scriptures which we hear from the sadhus. And that contemplation gives us conviction and confidence. And when there is conviction and confidence, there is clarity in how we can make our choices. And therefore, the only reason for creation of the Vaishnava Satsanga in this world and the creation of the Satsanga within ISKCON is to provide that asset which trumps every other asset. If all other assets are there, but if this asset is not there, nothing can be done. But if no assets are there, but if this asset is there, everything can be done. And what is that? Hope. That asset of hope is the most crucial asset. And therefore, Vasudeva is described as tatascha shauri bhagavat prachodita sutam samadaya cha sutika grihat. Vasudeva is glorified as Shauri, the brave. How is he brave? He has not won any battle. He has not defended his own family members. Why is he called brave? If you say, here is a personification of book distribution. How many books he has distributed? He tried distributing one small book. How can he be personification of book distribution? So why is Vasudeva called brave, Shauri? Because Kamsa had put Vasudeva in a helpless situation. But although helpless, Vasudeva did not become hopeless. And therefore, he had that hope that things are not going as per my expectation now. But the world is not moving by my will. The world is moving by Krishna's will. And therefore, I need to have some patience and some faith in Krishna's will. And that kind of patience, confidence and enthusiasm comes in the association of devotees. The association of devotees' main service is to provide hope to each other. Mahanta svabhava ei tarite pamar nija karya nahi tabu jatar ghar. And therefore, when the devotees, they travel and spread the holy names and travel and spread the glories of Krishna consciousness, people develop that confidence and faith within their heart. And so that's what is the theme of Braj, that Krishna appears in the heart of those who never lose hope, who are always hopeful and optimistic. So Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the Lord can deliver anyone and everyone though fallen. And the real purpose of a saintly person is to enlighten by preaching Krishna consciousness. And they may appear to be begging, but that begging is to engage in missionary activity to enlighten the people. And so Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself takes that position, takes that role of becoming someone who is interested to hear from Ramananda Rai. Ramananda Rai is a householder. He is not coming from the highest class of society. He is a politician by profession. Lord Chaitanya is a sannyasi, born in a Brahmanical family. But Lord Chaitanya sits and hears from Ramananda Rai. And Lord Chaitanya says, Prabhu kahe aage kah shunite paye sukhe, apurvamrita nadi bahe, tomara mukhe. An unprecedented stream of nectar is flowing from your lips. I want to hear from you more and more. When Ramananda Rai hears this, immediately he responds, Hridaya prerana kaha, jihvaya kaho vani, ki kahiye bhalamand, ki chui na jani. My dear Lord, I may be speaking something which may be making some sense. But the main person who's making me speak is you. Hridaya Preranakar. You are giving me that inspiration. You are giving me that intelligence. You are giving me that impetus. You are the cause. You are the source. And I do not know whether what I am speaking is making sense or not. He gives credit to Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya in turn again gives credit to Ramananda Rai. And he says, Prabhu kohe mayavadi amito sannyasi bhakti tattva nahi jani mayavade bhasi. Lord Chaitanya says, why you are glorifying me? I am a mayavadi sannyasi. I don't know what is bhakti tattva. And I only associated with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Sarvabhauma sange mora mana nirmala hoila Krishna bhakti tattva kaha tahare puchila. When I associated with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, I asked him, what is this Krishna bhakti tattva? Please explain to me. And you know what Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said? Teho kahe aame nahi jane Krishna katha sabe Ramananda jane teho nahi etha. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, I don't know what is Krishna katha. I don't know what is this Krishna bhakti. You go and ask Ramananda Rai. And therefore Lord Chaitanya says, on the recommendation of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, I have come to you, O Ramananda. Tomar thani oila tomar mohima shuniya tumi mor stuti kara sannyasi janiya. I have come here with the hope of hearing from you. I know as per social status, I am a sannyasi and you are bound to respect me and honor me. But I do not want any kind of social status and protocols to be an impediment in my real true core need of the soul to take shelter of Krishna through hearing and chanting. And therefore, I want to humble myself in front of you and hear from you. And therefore, the qualification for hearing and chanting is not based on any social status, is not based on any skill, but is simply based on two things: submission and sincerity. And so, Lord Chaitanya quotes the most famous verse, Kiba Vipra Kiba Nyasi Shudra Kenenoy Jai Krishna Tattvavet Tasai Guru Hoy. It does not matter whatever may be one's social status, as long as one understands the Krishna Tattva, he is the Guru. He is the person who is qualified to share this knowledge with others. And therefore, the reason Srila Prabhupada established International Society for Krishna Consciousness was to educate the masses, was to share this knowledge with others. And that is only possible when devotees go out who have the conviction, who have the confidence, who have the clarity in this process. They reach out and try to share their experience with others. That creates the transformation. I was distributing the Bhagavad Gita in the local train in one of the marathons in the late 90s. And, somebody just came up to me in the train and he looked at me and said, how much commission you get? What is your target and what commissions you get? I said, I'm young and, not used to being insulted so much. Abhi zyada aadat lag gayi. So that time I said, hey, I'm from IIT. I don't need all this, but I'm doing this out of seva because we want people to get this knowledge. He said, oh, you're from IIT? You're doing this? What happened? You didn't get a job or what? I said, hey, come on. We got convinced by the philosophy. We want to spread Sanatan Dharma. Therefore, we are doing this. The Gita is the most powerful literature which has the sum and substance of all the Vedic literatures. It has the essence. And then, he said, okay, I don't know. I'm surprised because I am from Pune and I never met any of you in Pune. I said, hey, my colleague, Radheshyam Prabhu, he's the president in Pune and he's also from IIT. He said, oh my God, one more IIT, he's also in Pune. So I said, yeah, you can go and meet him and take lessons on the Bhagavad Gita from him. So then he said, I'm a filmmaker and I'm making a documentary just now. And the documentary is on the predicament of the youth in the Indian education system. And the title of the recent documentary I'm making is, what are the struggles and what all people do, the students do to enter into IIT. That is the documentary I'm making. But now after hearing about you and your friend in Pune, I'm going to make one more documentary. What all people do after leaving IIT. So somebody asked Srila Prabhupada, why you are making all these temples? And Srila Prabhupada said, we are making these temples only for one purpose. So that when people come, they get inspired by seeing the devotees and hearing from the devotees and practicing the process of Krishna consciousness, by which they can transform their own homes into temples by creating facilities for Krishna Nam, Krishna Katha and Krishna Prasad. We want to convert each and every home into a place of worship for each one. And therefore Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, while going for South India, he approaches Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and he says, Ghare Krishna bhaje more kora ashirvade, Nilachala asi jena tomar prasade. O Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, please give me blessings by which I can come back. After the travel and tour, I can come back to Puri. So Srila Prabhupada writes in that purport, Lord Chaitanya is a sannyasi, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is a grihastha. Generally, grihastha seeks blessings of sannyasi. Lord Chaitanya is a sannyasi seeking blessings of grihastha. How is this? And Prabhupada says, when one follows and practices the principles of Krishna consciousness as given by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then the status or the ashram does not matter. What is important is one's conviction that I need to take shelter of Krishna and Krishna's devotees. And therefore here we have the example that Vasudeva is taking shelter of Krishna and bringing Krishna and keeping him right next to Yashoda Mai. And next day morning, when Nanda Maharaj wakes up, he sees that Yashoda Mai has given birth to a beautiful boy. And so the famous chapter on Nandotsav begins with the famous verse, Nandastu atmaja utpanne jatalado mahamanaha aruhya vipran vedagyan snatah shuchi alankrita. The verse begins by saying, Nandastu atmaja utpanne. Tu means but. So why is the verse beginning with but? To demonstrate that it was Vasudeva and Devaki who did severe tapasya and penance in their previous lives. Thousands of years, millennia, they performed austerity to get Krishna as the son. They also had to tolerate the death of their 6 sons. But after going through so much of pain, who is getting the pleasure of Krishna's childhood pastime? Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda Mai. Is it fair? Is it just? सही हुआ क्या? क्या ये ठीक है? क्या ये न्याय है? You are only smiling. So when people do something, they have an expectation. that I will also get something at the end of the day. You may chant the Shikshashtakam prayers, na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim, kavitam va, jagadisha kamaye. Lekin thoda de do. Little bit, not much. So, to be in a situation, and one of the biggest impetus for devotees is you chant Hare Krishna, practice the process. At the end of life, you will go back home, back to Godhead. So that's an impetus, right? So if someone says, you chant Hare Krishna, and he will go back to Godhead, will it be acceptable? So you may start thinking, let me check out other demigods. Vasudeva and Devaki, they have performed all of these austerities. But Krishna decides to spend 11 years in Gokul performing those pastimes which are performed only once in an entire day of Brahma. And Krishna personally appears once in so many billions of years, just once for those 11 years. So that Vrindavan pastimes, childhood pastimes, are only performed in a very brief window of 11 years in the midst of billions of years. Athanyadapi Krishnasya tokacharitam adbhutam manusham lokamasadya tat jatim anurundhata. Parikshit Maharaj says, I want to hear those pastimes, childhood pastimes, toka charitam. Because practically majority of the people in this world are grihasthas, householders, families with children. So all of them have experience of the joy and the anxieties of parenting. So therefore Krishna appears as a vulnerable, dependent child of Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda. And by hearing and reading about those pastimes, people can relate. So therefore, Manusham Lokam Asadya. Because in human society, whatever is your experience, you can relate that when you hear the pastimes of Krishna in Vrindavan as a child. Because when Narsingadev appeared, there was no childhood pastime. There was no Bal Leela. Only he ripped apart Hiranyakashipu's Bal. He destroyed him. There is no, you can't be telling Narsingadev to eat steel butter. He ripped apart the abdomen of Hiranyakashipu, and there was like a fountain of blood which came up. So only when Krishna appears as Nandanandan, there is a special, unique, sweet flavor. And therefore Parikshit Maharaj says, Yena yena avatarena bhagavan haririshvara karoti karna ramyani manogyani chana prabho. Amongst all the different avatars which Krishna takes, when he appears directly as Krishna and performs pastimes in Braj, that is very unique, very special, because that demonstrates to the whole world the movement of love. How love moves, how love walks, how love dances, how love sings. And therefore Vraj literally means movement. Vraj means movement. So the pastimes of Krishna in Vrindavan demonstrates the movement of Krishna's will. And when Krishna's will moves, how does the reciprocation and response of the Vrajavasis move in response to Krishna's will? They are in sync with Krishna's will, in step with Krishna's will. And as Krishna's will dances, the Brajavasis will also dances in step, in tune with Krishna's will. And that's why the rasa dance is so glorified. Because to be in perfect synchrony and acceptance wholeheartedly of Krishna's will is practically impossible for a conditioned soul. Because Krishna's will is sometimes unimaginable, unfathomable. Therefore it is said, to surrender and to deal with God's word is difficult. More difficult than to deal with God's words, which is scripture or shastra. Right? More difficult to deal with God's words is to deal with the devotees, devotees' will. The devotees, Vaishnavas' will. Because when the Vaishnavas express their will, it is dynamic. You cannot close it like a book. They are standing in front of you. Right? If you don't like, some verse in Bhagavad Gita, Sarva Dharman Parityajya. I don't like it. You close it and go to sleep. But if devotee is standing and telling you, do this, so you can't, disappear. So you have to face it. So the devotee's will is more difficult to follow than Krishna's words. In the 1970s, there is a famous case where there was an accusation of brainwashing on iskcon, saying that it's a cult. iskcon is a cult. Means it has no scriptural basis and things like that. So the devotees did not know what to do and came to the court, New York court. And the president approached Srila Prabhupada and said, what do we do? And Prabhupada told him, you personally fight the case. You argue. And he said, how can I argue? I am not even a college graduate. I am a college dropout. Prabhupada said, that's a great qualification. You just do what I say. And he said, bring the first canto Srimad Bhagavatam to the courtroom and you speak from the first canto, first chapter, first verse. Explain what is Bhagavatam. Second day of the case, speak from the second verse. Third day, speak from the third verse. Convert the court case into Bhagavatam class. Now it was totally out of the box idea. And with logic, if you think, then you may say, how is it possible? But the devotee followed. And after 7 days, the judge only asked, how much more evidence you have? And he said, we have 18,000 verses. I'm just giving some, brief beginning. So the judge called one of his friends who was a Harvard Divinity School professor and said, hey, what do you think about these Hare Krishnas? They keep speaking from these books. And they keep distributing these books at the airports and various places. And one of the book distribution parties had given a whole set of Prabhupada's Bhagavatam to this professor. And he had read these books. And immediately he said, I have studied Swami Prabhupada's books. They are authentic, they are tradition, and it is not a cult. Immediately. So, this judge gave a verdict which became historic. And in that verdict he said very clearly, the Hare Krishna movement is not a cult, it is bona fide religion. And it got published everywhere in all the newspapers. And if you read Giriraj Maharaj's book, that whole newspaper clipping is, embedded there. So, to follow God's words is difficult. More difficult is to follow the devotee's will. But most difficult is to deal with Krishna's whim. Krishna's whim means you can never predict which way he will desire. There is a saying, no, whims and fancies. Whim. Which way Krishna will decide. So therefore, here, Krishna has decided that Vasudeva and Devaki were responsible for bringing me to this world. They did all the austerities. But Nanda and Yashoda Mai, I choose to spend time. And therefore, Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda Mai, they perform all the rituals for Krishna after his birth. Kalena snana sauchabhyam samskare tapasejya shuddhyanti dane samtushtya atmatma vidyaya. That different things purify, like time purifies mountains and valleys and trees. Snana, taking a bath purifies the body. Shauchabhyam, when you scrub, with water and any cleansing agent, you can clean your clothes and vessels and utensils. Shauchabhyam. Sanskarai, samskara purifies birth. Tapasa, austerity purifies the senses. How do you purify senses? You have to restrict the senses. You have to say no to the senses. When you restrict the senses get purified. That is called sanskarai. Right? So Srila Prabhupada mentions tapasa. Tapasya in Krishna consciousness does not mean artificially repressing the senses. It basically means how you can engage the senses in Krishna's service with the proper knowledge. When the devotees were in Vrindavan, there was the construction of the Krishna Balram temple going on. In the morning, the devotees were on the way from Fogala Ashram, where they were staying. This is 1973-74, and they were going to the construction site of Krishna Balram temple. On the way, there was a Brajavasi, sweet shop owner who invited the devotees. It was a roadside stall, and he said, today is a very auspicious day. I want to begin the day by giving some, food to the sadhus, like all of you. And he started giving them, rasgulla, rasmalai, sandesh, barfi, jalebi. And when the devotees saw this, they could not say no, and they started honoring. Right on the, right next to the street, to the road. And suddenly Srila Prabhupada's car went by. And as Prabhupada's car went by, the devotees didn't know how to react. And the car passed by them, and they were pacified that he has gone. But the car stopped ahead and took a reverse turn and stood right in front of where these devotees were. And once you have a rasgulla in one side of the mouth, you can't gobble it immediately. And they had in their hands, and they had no table or anything. It was like a street side shop. So there was no table where you could hide or anything. They were caught red-handed. Prabhupada turned the window down, looked out, and Prabhupada had his eyes big. He looked at each and every devotee and what all they have in their hand. And then Prabhupada, and the devotees were nervous. What will he say? Will he chastise? Will he do this? Prabhupada suddenly smiled and he said, Bengali sweets essential for life. And the devotees felt, wow, Prabhupada is happy. He's not chastising us. So, that episode went 3 years later when Prabhupada was in the West Coast, California. He gave a program in a college, came out, and they had set up a bookstall and a prasadam stall. So one devotee who was in that episode was there. So as soon as Prabhupada came out, he took a sandesh and showed it to Prabhupada and said, Srila Prabhupada, Bengali sweet. Prabhupada immediately picked up the Chaitanya Charitamrita and he said, this is the real Bengali sweet. चैतन्य लीला रत्नसार स्वरूपेर भंडार तेह ठोइला रघुनाथेर कंठे ताहा किच्छु जय सुनिलो ताहा इहा बिस्तारिलो भक्तगण दिलु एई भेटे. तो Kaviraj Goswami is saying, this Chaitanya Charitamrita is not a book. This is a gift. I am giving a gift on behalf of Lord Chaitanya to the whole world, to the Vaishnava. Bhaktagana dilu ei bhete. This is a bhet. Chaitanya Lila is like Ratnasar, collection of jewels. And this was held by Swarup Damodar Goswami, Swarupera Bhandar. And he gave it to Raghunath Das Goswami. Teho Thuila Raghunathera Kanthe. Taha Kichu Jai Shunilu. When Das Goswami was sitting on the bank of Radhakund and speaking the Chaitanya Charitamrita every day, I heard those pastimes. Taha Kichu Jai Shunilu. Taha Iha Vistarilu. Those are the pastimes I am repeating here as a gift. And he says, if someone says, Jeba nahi bujhe keha, shunite shunite seha, ki adbhuta chaitanya charitra, Krishna upajibe priti janibe rashera riti shunilai bada hoye hita. Even if you don't understand, hearing these pastimes repeatedly will create conviction in bhakti and reveal the principles of rasa. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada gave us these literatures, especially the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Chaitanya Charitamrita, so that we can get an understanding of the Vraja Bhakti. So Srila Prabhupada writes in this purport, by his personal example, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explains how one should be submissive and humble before a Vaishnava, though situated on a high platform. And this is the similar situation where Nanda Maharaj, at this point experiencing great bliss, he at that time realizes that my bliss is not important as much as Krishna's protection. Rohini cha mahabhaga nanda gopa binanditaha. Rohini, she was without her husband Vasudeva. In that situation, she should have been in a state of distress. But Rohini was also wearing all kinds of ornaments and in a mood of celebration. Why? Because in Vrindavan, the cause of celebration is Krishna's pleasure. If Krishna is pleased, that is joy. If Krishna is in distress, that is my misery. Therefore, in the material world, misery is compulsory, but suffering is optional. And the Brajavasis are not constantly calculating how to increase one's prosperity, how to diminish one's adversity, because the constant calculation of enhancing prosperity and diminishing adversity is what is known as anxiety. The only thing the Brajavasis are searching for is opportunity. The opportunity to serve and please Krishna. And that's why here Rohini is in great joy, although externally the situation is such that she should be lamenting. Because she is seeing Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda Mai are in great joy because they have Krishna. And so, when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is hearing from Ramananda Rai, he tells him, Jai che shunilo tai che dekhilo tomara mahima Radha Krishna prema rasa bhaber tumi sima. I heard about you, but after meeting you, I can see that you are experiencing and expressing the summit of Radha Krishna prema rasa. And hence, In the question answer which he has at the last part of the conversation, he asks, what is the definition of distress? And then in response, Ramananda Rai says, to be separated from the association of devotees is the greatest distress. And therefore, Ramananda Rai quotes a verse which then describes the 4 symptoms of fortune. Ma manaradya dukkharta kutumba saktamanasa satsanga rahito martyo dukkha seva parichyuta vriddha seva parichyuta. What are the 4 symptoms of fortune? First, when one gets an opportunity to worship Krishna, that is the first symptom of fortune. How many of you have opportunity to worship Krishna? Raise your hand. So you are passing the first symptom of fortune. Second symptom of fortune, kutumba sakta manasa. When one has heard about a destination beyond one's own family, friends and relatives as the goal of life, and that is the destination of the spiritual world, Goloka, Vrindavan and Vaikuntha. How many of you have heard about that destination? You're already 2 times lucky, 50% fortunate. Third, satsanga rahito martyo. The third symptom of fortune is someone who has constant access for satsanga or devotees association. How many of you have that? On festivals you have intense association. You have too much of association. So already you have 75% fortunate. And fourth is vriddha seva parichyuta. How many of you have the luxury of being in the association of hearing from and serving devotees who are elder to you, senior to you, and more advanced than you? How many of you have that association? No, I don't see so many hands. You don't have? Who are senior to you, people who are elder to you, and more advanced than you? Or you think I am, who can be more advanced than me? So the fourth is also something which all of us have in our lives. But in spite of having all of these, as per scripture, this is a symptom of fortune. This is the symptom of fortune. But the mind will convince us. Oh, no. You don't have this in life. You don't have that in life. Therefore, you're not fortunate. That's called the murmuring of the mind. We should not allow the murmuring of the mind to take us away from the great fortune which is right in front of us in the association of devotees. Therefore, Nanda Maharaj, he has Krishna's presence with him, but he knows, I have to protect Krishna. The fortune of being with Krishna is such a rare thing. I have to protect this. I cannot take it for granted. Krishna can be taken away any moment by the attacks of Kamsa. And therefore, being with Krishna is not as important for me as protecting Krishna. And therefore, Nanda Maharaj leaves. He leaves Gokul and he goes to Mathura to pay the taxes to Kamsa. He pays the taxes and then meets Vasudeva. Vasudeva comes to him and meets him. Pujita sukhamasina prishtva anamayamadrita prasaktadhi swatma jayoho idam aha vishampate. And as soon as he sees him, he offers obeisances. They embrace each other. And Vasudeva has this anxiety. Pujita sukhamasina prishtva anamayam adrita. With respect, he asks, how are you, how is your family, and things like that. Prasaktadhi. But Vasudev's heart is throbbing with anxiety. In the middle of the night, across the Yamuna, I took my boy and kept him there next to Yashoda Mai. What happened to him? Is he still surviving? Is he well? If he is well, is Nanda Maharaj suspicious whether he is his son or somebody else's son? These are the anxieties plaguing the heart and mind of Vasudeva. Vasudeva's mind is roaring with these anxieties to know about Krishna, but he cannot bring Krishna to his lips. And therefore Krishna consciousness means doing, speaking and feeling the way that is favorable for Krishna consciousness, favorable for Krishna. So Vasudeva is constantly meditating about his son, but he cannot speak about his son directly. He cannot arouse the suspicion of Nanda Maharaj. And therefore he says, Deshtya bhrata pravayasa idanim aprajasyade prajashaya samutras prajasat samapadyata. Dishtya, he says, by destiny. Bhrata pravayasa, oh my dear brother Nanda Maharaj, you are in advanced age. Idanim aprajasyate, and you were without any son so far. You did not have any praja. Prajashaya nivrittasya, you had given up the hope for praja at advanced age. Prajatat samapadyata, still you got a praja. Right? We have the pastime of Chitraketu. He married one wife, he did not get a son or a progeny. He married second wife, he did not get third wife. He went on marrying with the hope of praja. That's called prajasha. Praja asha, the desire for a child. And finally Chitraketu Maharaj landed up marrying 1 crore wives. His original crorepati. Still, he was unsuccessful. Then the famous intervention of, the great souls who approach him and then give him the idea that ultimately it is by the will of the Lord. By the will of the Lord, you get things. By the will of the Lord, those things are taken away. Therefore, do not spend your whole life embracing things. Braj means they are constantly embracing Krishna's will. And that is what is being highlighted through the Srimad Bhagavatam. The Srimad Bhagavatam is nothing but a spotlight on Krishna's will. Every shlok, every syllable, every pastime is only throwing the spotlight. In a dark room, when there is a spotlight and a person is standing there, you only see that person clearly. So that's what the Srimad Bhagavatam is doing. Throwing the spotlight through every pastime only on Krishna's will. Krishna Ichha. And how you decide to embrace his will. And therefore, Prajashaya Nivrittasya, and in this entire verse, he doesn't use the word putra or putri. Vasudeva is not using the word putra. He's using the word praja, 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 3 times. Dishtya idanim aprajasya prajashaya prajatat samapadyata. 3 times he's using the word praja, not putra, not putri. Why? Because Vasudeva knows Nanda Maharaj gave birth to putra or putri? Putri. And then Yogamaya, she was picked up by Vasudeva and brought back, and Vasudeva kept Krishna there. So if Vasudeva says, how is your son? You got a son. He would be speaking a lie. And therefore Vasudeva is very careful that while dealing with Vaishnavas, we cannot resort to half-truth or even diplomacy which borders on lie. And therefore, he took a stand that I have to be uncompromisingly straightforward and transparent, upright, and with total integrity while speaking, presenting, representing, sharing, communicating with Vaishnavas. Previously with Kamsa, Vasudeva indulged in a little bit of, words and speech which bordered on diplomacy. But when he is dealing with Nanda Maharaj, he is not taking any chances. If I use the word putra, it would indicate that I'm implying that he had a son when I know I was the one who kept the son there. So therefore, the Vaishnava Shishtachar dictates that we should be extra careful while speaking and communicating and interacting with the devotees. So therefore he uses the word praja. Praja means one who is born. It could mean son or daughter. So he was technically correct. And therefore, then Vasudeva says that Dishtya samsara chakresmin vartamano punarbhavam upalabdo bhavan adya durlabham priyana darshanam. He says the nature of this world is by the will of the Lord. Sometimes you meet people you don't like to meet, and other times you don't meet people you like to meet. Naikatra priya samvasa surdam chitra karmanam oghena vyuhamananam plavanam srota soyata. Just like sticks, they float in the moving river, come together for some time, and then they disappear. Like that, souls come together by the will of the Lord, and then they disappear. And therefore, it is very, very difficult to predict the Lord's will. So again, he is referring to the Lord's will. And the Lord's will is something which is totally unpredictable. It is totally beyond one's control. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in his own personal pastimes, demonstrated this. When he is going to South India, he is taking the blessings of all the devotees. And Vishwarupa Siddhi Prapti Janena Sakal Dakshina Desha Uddharite Korin Echal. He is saying, I'm going to the South India to search for Vishwarup. And then I will, therefore I do not want any devotees with me because I am on a mission. Iha sabara vashe hoye ye gune dosharop chale kore guna aswadane. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not want to be bound by his devotees' love. Devotees' love is such that it binds you. And so Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to go on South India tour and perform his mission. And therefore, he wanted the freedom to do that. And as he embarks on the South India tour, he first seeks the blessings of all the Vaishnavas, including Nityananda Prabhu. Then he goes to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and takes his blessings also. Shire Vajra Padi Mora Kore Ashirvade. Shire Vajra Padi Mora Putra Mari Jai. Taha Sahana Tomar Vicheda Sahana Nayai. I can actually tolerate even the Vajra falling upon my head or death of my son, but I cannot tolerate separation from you. Lord Chaitanya surrenders to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's desire, postpones his departure plan. Then when he gives blessings, comes to Jagannath Ji. And when he comes and takes darshan of Lord Jagannath, the garland of Lord Jagannath falls right in front of him. The pujari priest comes and offers that garland to Lord Chaitanya. Agyamalapaya harshe namaskar kori, anande dakshina deshe chale gaur hari. Lord Chaitanya takes that as the Lord's permission to go to South India. And then with that permission, Lord Chaitanya starts on his journey to South India. Mattu simma pray prabhu korila gaman, prema veshe jai kori nama sankirtan. Like a maddened lion, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was chanting the holy names, resounding through the forests and the pathways as he was on the journey to the holy places of pilgrimage in South India. So therefore, through these beautiful episodes in the Vraja Leela and the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the Lord is demonstrating that the purpose of all scripture and literature is to help us understand that the ultimate principle in this entire creation is the will of the Lord. We cannot understand the will of the Lord, and we can never understand the will of the Lord. We can only submit to that will. We can only submit to that will. We can never comprehend that will. We can only cooperate with that will. So the purpose of scripture is not to help us comprehend that will, but it is to help us cooperate with that will. And therefore Raghunath Das Goswami tells Lord Chaitanya, Rakshake rahat mohi ke mone chuti ba, ke mone prabhur sange nila chale jab. When can I be free and come to you, my dear Lord, in Jagannath Puri? Lord Chaitanya says, Sthir hoya ghare jaho, nahao batul, krame krame payalo ka bhava sindukul. Be steady, go home. In due course of time you will come to me. Just practice the process. How? Antare nishtha karabahya loka vyavahar, ochire koribe Krishna tomara uddhar. Krishna consciousness is not based on externals. Antare nishtha kara. Have faith and conviction that the will of the Lord is always ultimate. Nishtha kara. Bahya loka vyavahar. Continue your external activities. In due course of time, by the will of the Lord, you will come to me. Brindavana dekhi jabe asiba nila chole, tabe tumi ama pasa asiha kona chale. I go to Vrindavan, I come back to Puri, that time you come to me. So Raghunath Das is saying, Are, my circumstance, situation is not going to change. The guards surrounding me will continue. My parents' strictness to oversee my movements will continue. How will things change? Many times our current lack of assets make us lose confidence on how, if things are so miserable now, and if I am unable to perform this seva now, how will in future I will be able to perform this seva? How will anything change? Krishna's will is dynamic, is constantly changing. Therefore the seva does not depend on your skill, it depends on his will. And that's the hope-giving factor. So Lord Chaitanya tells Raghunath Das, Se chale se kale Krishna spurabe tomare, Krishna kripa jare tare, ke rakhite pare. Se chale, se kale. At the right moment, Krishna will give you the intelligence from within. You will see the window of opportunity. Windows always open. But only when Krishna gives the intelligence, matta smritir jnanam apohanam cha, you see that window. And then you make the right choice. And then Lord Chaitanya says the ultimate. Krishna kripa jare tare, ke rakhite pare. If Krishna has decided to engage you in any seva, which power in the creation can stop? And if Krishna has decided not to engage you in that seva, which power in the creation can make you engage? Why to be in anxiety? It is whose seva? Krishna's seva. He will decide, he will choose and make things happen. He is the doer. I was distributing books in the local train in Mumbai. This was in the early 2000. December marathon. It was a crowded evening, Mumbai local train, One American professor was asking me, hey, I once traveled in your local train in Mumbai. It was miserable. What do you get? What do you guys get? I said, free massage. So I entered, and then I had this book bag, and then suddenly one guy stood on my right hand, another guy on my left hand. I could not move. Crowded to the core. One gentleman came right in front of me, looked at me, and he said, Hare Krishna wala? I said, who else is dressed like this? He said, Bhagavad Gita I want. I said, take it. I said, take it? Where? He said, you can see my hand cannot move. There is a bag. There is a Gita here. Put your hand inside, take it. He put the hand inside, took the Gita. He said, how much? I said, 70 rupees. He took out a 100 rupee note. I said, you see my pocket? Put the 100 rupee, take 30 rupees. He put the 100 rupees, took the 30 rupees. I sold a Bhagavad Gita. That day I realized I am not the doer. Krishna is the doer. So Lord Chaitanya is concluding by giving hope to Raghunath Das Goswami. Krishna kripa jare tare ke rakhite pare. Your plan is not manifesting, your plan is not becoming successful, your plan is not moving the way you want. Baba, He is the one who plans. So you go as per His plan and cooperate with His plan. Don't compete with His plan. And that's what Braj Bhumi Vrindavan is. Krishna told Nanda Maharaj, don't serve Indra. Don't do puja to Indra. Serve whom? Govardhan. And as a result, what happened? Destruction, devastation, calamity. And everybody's house was finished. House was all washed away. All of them were standing under Giriraj. Not a single Brajvasi looked back to see, ghar kaisa hai? Not a single Brajvasi discussed with another Brajvasi, what is going on with your property? Why are we here? I think we have to make Nanda Maharaj realize that he should not listen to Krishna. He is too immature. It's not good. There was no cross-talking, no anxiety. Everybody was focused on Krishna. You see the pictures all the time. You see the picture there. Krishna is, with the little finger. Giriraj is there. And all the Brajavasis are smiling. But in what circumstances they are smiling? And they are looking at Krishna. There is total devastation of their families and of their property. But they are absorbed in Krishna. Why? Because they realize that yes, ultimately we have to surrender to Krishna's will. So there is disaster from above. Giriraj is handling all the disaster and taking it upon himself. And what is giving him the impetus? The touch of Krishna's finger. Giving him the pleasure which gives him all the power to experience and tolerate that pain, because his purpose is to give pleasure to Krishna and the Brajavasis. That is the impetus for the devotees in Braj. How we can serve and please Krishna and the devotees. If they are pleased, then we are willing to accept unlimited pain on behalf of Krishna, to give pleasure to Krishna and the devotees. So these are some of the wonderful exchanges which Uddhavji is having with Vidura in the third canto, this particular section. Remembrance of Krishna and Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, which is nothing but a total spotlight, focus and absorption in the movement of Krishna's will. And the Brajavasis are not concerned with the direction of Krishna's will. They are only concerned with surrendering to that will, cooperating with that will, and moving along with that will, dancing in step and in tune with Krishna's will. And therefore, Ras Leela is not a cheap dance of the material world. It's the most exalted position where, in a fraction of a second, the Brajavasis are able to connect, respond, and reciprocate with Krishna's will without hesitation. That's why Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught us in Kirtan, raise your hands and dance. What is that dance? That dance is indicating that we are willing to dance as per your will, my dear Lord. You bring prosperity in our life, we will accept that. You bring adversity and calamity in our life, we will accept that. We are accepting the Lord to make us dance as per His will. And that's the beautiful background behind the entire pastimes of Sri Vrindavan Dham. And no one else can respond with such swiftness as the Brajavasis. That's why they are considered to be the most exalted of all the devotees. And therefore, Uddhava, who has spent his entire life in Dwarka, he is remembering the Brajavasis, because that brief interaction with the Brajavasis made him realize who is exalted, higher, more advanced in their ability to respond and reciprocate with Krishna. And that's the context of this discussion between Vidurji and Uddhav here as they are discussing on the banks of Yamuna. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki. Srila Prabhupada Book Distribution Marathon ki. Jai Go Premanandi.